Okay. So, hi. I am Annemarie, and I am going to be interviewing Connor Wooff. Wooff?
Yep. Woof.
Okay.
Yep.
He is the student government president. And if you just want to introduce yourself a little bit.
Yeah. So my name's Connor Woof. I use he, him, his. I'm the undergraduate student body president this year. And I study political science and I'll be a senior. So,
Okay. So first of all, how did the email to the administration about Black Lives Matter and the protests and everything, how did that come about for student government?
yeah. So at first, well, I'll kind of walk the timeline. So
Yeah.
before the murder of, or after the murder of George Floyd, we knew we wanted to respond not only to reassure students that we cared about Black students and students of color on our campus, but also offer opportunities for engagement with topics on race for students, resources like counseling or various like multicultural resources on our campus, but also kind of do a call to action. So that was so after George Floyd was murdered, we were really kind of taking the time to write a good statement. And I know a lot of people were like, oh, where's student government statement on this? Where is it? So we just wanted to make sure it was high quality, not performative. And so that initial statement went out before the tear gassing of students. And
Okay.
so a lot of that, our biggest thing in that was we kind of called on administrators to really think about how they themselves in their positions, but also personally, are contributing to the policing of students, like the policing of their lives, their education, just to kind of do some sort of like call to action for us to think about how we can be a better university. So we did that. And then on June 3rd, the night of June 3rd, as you know, students were protesting peacefully on near like Mayflower Interstate 80. There was no clear line that students were told not to cross, and the law enforcement present were Iowa City Police Department and Iowa State Patrol. So University of Iowa Police Department was not present. But at one point, and I was watching over the Daily Iowan like live stream, and I'm really thankful that they were able to attend. And at one point, they were just like tear gas was released on the peaceful protesters and flashbangs. So we knew at this point, like we had to respond because it was completely unacceptable. And as I was watching it, I was on the live stream from my house. I was like, this is just, it looks like a war zone. It like
Yeah.
students were literally screaming for like medics, like you could hear it. And it was just like, these are students that are like going to class with me. These are students that are in student orgs, like they are part of our community. And so it was just horrific to see. And so we had to make some sort of action. And so the next day we were really in like meetings all day about it and communicating with administration and as a team and talking to student org leaders. And we were just like, that we knew a lot of our two Big Ten colleges, student governments. So first Minnesota called for cutting ties with Iowa City or Minnesota police.
Yeah.
After George Floyd in Minneapolis. And that was successful because of all that's going on in Minneapolis. And then Ohio State student government also called for the same thing. And so it's definitely on the table. And we were thinking, my initial thoughts were like, oh, is it realistic? What would it look like? What relationships do we have? Because I don't even know how the University of Iowa, or at the time, I didn't know how they worked together with Iowa City Police. And so it really kind of came to the point where if we're not calling for this now, we're not making this big ask now, what has to happen for us to feel comfortable to do that? And at that point, the people in student government are like, we don't want to see something like that happen we don't want to wait and see that happen to feel
Yeah,
comfortable
for
in the
sure.
decision. And so we made the call, or we like got a group together, wrote this letter, and it included a variety of asks. The first one is to cut relationships with Iowa City Police Department. The second is State Patrol and Coralville Police, because we've been hearing a lot of concerns from Coralville Police. And then another one was to kind of audit the Department of Public Safety that we have on our campus, so the University of Iowa Police. And we just had, in our minds and in my mind, we just had to make a clear, put a stick in the ground and say, like, enough is enough. This is, too horrific to watch. Like, we need to make this big call to action and force administration to really come up with a response and start responding to what happened. So.
Yeah. And I mean, that's it. Everything that happened, that's not something that you would expect to happen in Iowa City. I feel like we think of Iowa City like a little bubble in Iowa. It's like that little liberal bubble in the conservative mass of Iowa. And to
Right.
I know for me, when I heard about it, like, all thinking about how this happened in Iowa City, like, you never would have expected that.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's
Yeah.
definitely very crazy. So when you decided, you guys got together to start writing the article, sorry, not the article, the email, and statement and everything, after the tear gas and stuff, was that something that was a student government decision? Did you talk to other organizations? Did you interact at all with, like, organizers of the protest, or was it mostly just like student government decision and you guys did it yourself?
Yeah, it was really a student government initial decision because we knew that, well, actually that's, I guess, not the case. So, like, it was something that we were thinking about very seriously. And it was something that we're like, we've been seeing things happen, and especially with Ohio State. I think they had a very similar situation with us. Like, peaceful protesters were gassed, for no absolute reason. They were just gathering. And so they made that call. And so it was in the back of our mind, like, is this an option for us? But a lot of I think there was a lot of grassroots support for it even before we did it. I know, like, people all across Twitter, all across student orgs, all across Iowa City, they were really calling for this on Twitter, and a change.org petition started. And I think I haven't checked it since, like, we were really making the letter, but it reached, at the time of our letter, I think it reached like 15,000 signatures,
Oh,
which is,
wow, that's a lot of
yeah,
people.
it is a lot. I mean, if you put that in perspective, it's like half our student body, right?
Yeah.
And so, not to say that all of them were students, but it's just like a lot of them could be alumni, people that care about the University of Iowa and Iowa City.
Yeah.
And so there's just a groundswell of pressure from, like, students, from student leaders, even people that, I looked up to, like, former student body presidents that I know that have been in my shoes before. Like, even they were calling for it. And I was like, okay, this is something that we need to do. Like, there's no if, and, or but for calling for it. And so afterwards, a lot of the outreach that our Director of Justice and Equity, Ruth Kasai, she did a lot of organizing with student leaders, and we reached nearly, I think, 150 student orgs signed on to the letter, which is like one
Oh,
in
wow.
5 organizations, which is a pretty big
Yeah.
deal. And so there's a lot of student orgs that don't have anything to do with it, like Food Pantry and Dance Marathon. Like, these are people that are just like, they see it, they're angered, and they want to support what we were doing. So it was kind of it's not like we kind of had a town hall and then got the idea. It was a lot of hearing on social media, and then afterwards we really saw the support from it once we made the call.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that's fantastic that so many student organizations, signed on to it and have that support. And it's nice to have that in, the university community, and know that people are supporting this movement and supporting all of our students, not just, white students or anything. Like, we are supporting everyone. One thing that personally I thought was interesting was student government sent out their email, and then I think within 5 minutes, the administration sent out an email that seemed like it was in response to your email. So can you, like, talk me through, do you know why it was that soon? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
So we released, so it was very, very weird, I think, from the student perspectives to see that.
Yeah.
We released our statement on social media the day before, and it takes a little bit for us to kind of get through the minutia of, like, the ITS support to get a mass email out. So administration saw our email or our and I told the president's office when we made the decision, because I was talking to them all day, the day after the tear gassing, and I was like, we've made a decision that we're going to encourage administration to cut ties. We're going to release a letter today. So they saw as soon as we released it. They're pretty active on like watching stuff like that. And
Yeah.
so I'm assuming they brought their team together to kind of come up with a response, and it just went out very like close together. So it wasn't like it seemed really weird when we were, but that's kind of how it played out. So.
Okay. So it wasn't like it was still a response. Going on that though, what are your thoughts on the response that like what they're saying? Because I know they're it's like a review board, I believe was what they decided on, and they haven't said anything about cutting ties. They're like reviewing it and everything. So like for you and student government as a whole, like how do you feel? Like, is that enough of a response for you guys? Do you think there needs to be more,
So yeah, the initial response was, and when we were making these demands, like we knew that it was not going to be a light switch. Like it was, you can't, and so that was something that I was trying to talk to my team about and talk to students about. Like we can't just say like, all 4 demands are immediately met, right? But it's a lot of it is in working with administrations, it's a give and take. And so the initial response that was emailed out that Friday, that ours was as well, that it was not what we wanted, right? It was not, it wasn't I think honestly it was a little like unsure about it. Like it was kind of like, do you trust that this is going to happen? Do we feel like it's sincere enough? Do we feel like there's an actual, is it just a statement to make a statement? And I haven't read it in a while, but I know there were parts of it that matched up with what we said. So like the internal audit of DPS, what I've heard from administration and what they kind of relayed in that letter is that they are really committed to working with City of Iowa City leadership. And so they are putting in their trust because the city has a Black mayor and a Black mayor pro tem. They really want to support them as they reform the police and make changes. So that's what we've heard from them. So it wasn't satisfying completely. I don't think that type of response would have happened if we didn't make such a big call. I think it would have been more of like, we support students. This is important to us. Diversity, equity, inclusion is always a priority, right? But like, if we didn't make this big call, I don't think they would have kind of come to meet us in the middle. That's not to say there's so much work to do. There's like beyond, but there is this I am really excited about this Reimagining Public Safety Committee. I don't know if that's kind of what you're talking about, but so Sarah Hansen, the Vice President for Student Life, announced the Reimagining Campus Public Safety Reimagining Campus Safety Action Committee. And basically what it's intended to do is it's going to bring in students, like people who are doing research on this issue. I think a person from the UI police, a variety of stakeholders to kind of just if we were designing a University of Iowa Police Department, what would it look like? Like, what would we want it to look like? And so I'm very excited about that because it really is going to dismantle what we currently think of as the University of Iowa Police, and it's going to ensure that we're providing more mental health professionals who can deal with the mental health issues in residence halls and throughout campus that are emergency related. And so I'm very excited about that. I think the greater conversation is just about like, it's growing to like beyond public safety, right? Like the university has to just make some sort of, we have to move forward on diversity, equity, inclusion across the campus, so and that's kind of where our focus is like, has to kind of shift, because we're just seeing so many concerns across the board And so we're trying to have those bigger conversations and push the needle.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, that reimagining campus safety, that sounds like something that, step in the right direction. And, it doesn't create immediate results, but at least it's, the administration is putting something out there that in the end will help and improve, inclusion and public safety in the community. Well, we're going to take a quick break for a PSA, and we will be right back. Okay, we're back. So I just was curious, is student government, do you have any more plans and further steps when it comes to the public safety as well as diversity and inclusion? I know the email was a big deal, and that was really good for the community and knowing that student government's behind everyone. But do you have there been talks? Do you have a plan in place for this next semester?
Yes, so we are continuing these. This is like honestly kind of the bulk of the work I'm doing now, and so it is definitely going to be a priority this year. Like we don't want, even when the protests end, if they do, even if people aren't posting on social media, like we are committed to having these conversations throughout the year. And so there's a variety of ways that we're looking at doing things. One is engaging with this campus, this Reimagining Campus Safety Action Committee. So we have two representatives from student government, or one representative from student government and another from the LNAC, who will be sitting on that to kind of represent students as well as two additional grad students. I think it's not official yet, but that's kind of, we're going to be in those conversations with that committee and Sarah Hansen. And so that's a lot of the changes that will happen on campus with public safety will be in that group. And I know that they will be really just asking big questions, engaging campus, trying to think from the ground up. On the other aspect, like we are going to try and reach out, and we already have had some initial conversations with city leaders about how is the Iowa City Police Department changing? How is this going to continue on, or is it just going to be a committee that's going to die out, that's not going to seek change? And so having those conversations, we have two city liaisons that attend every city council meeting. So they're pretty active on that front. And then just like general diversity, equity, inclusion progress on our campus. So how is faculty trained? What does the complaint process look like to report a faculty member who is being discriminatory? And does that need to be clear? Because we had a town hall like last year, 2 weeks ago, where a lot of people are asking about how do I report a professor? And honestly, as an RA, like a former RA and orientation leader, I was like, oh, I think you report to the dean or you report to the department head or, but there's no clear answer. And if I don't
that's
know,
important.
Yes, right. And if I don't know how to answer that, like most students probably don't. So like clarifying that process. Supporting Black students in general is a priority for us. Like how can we as a student government use our funding to provide Black students with a resource that they can tap into? How can we memorialize Black lives that have been lost across campus? We're having conversations around that. Our Director of Justice and Equity and our Vice President have been really active on creating healing spaces and looking at a possible like week-long celebration in the fall semester of celebrating Black lives and Black culture. So there's a lot of moving parts right now, and we're so we're like, I'll tell you, like there's not a lot of other things that I'm giving my time to other than COVID-19 and reopening campus that this is going to be a big priority for us. So there's no specific documented plan, but we're having a lot of conversations.
Well, that's exciting to, have all these things going and to improve campus. And, I love the University of Iowa. I think our campus is a great place, but, knowing that, we're still improving and things can be improved and changed. And that's just an exciting thing to make it, a better space. To shift gears a little bit, you just mentioned COVID. I was wondering your thoughts and student government's thoughts on the fall semester plan for coming back to campus, and how student government feels about the administration's response to that.
Yeah, so we are pretty looped in on the planning of that. And so there's a critical incident management team that has a variety of different committees that focus on the academic experience and student life, and just a variety of things. And they've really put together this broad group of subcommittees that have experts on campus on these issues. And those groups have reported back to this broader committee that has helped create this plan. I'm honestly very, very proud of the plan. If you look at other schools, not to like name drop like Iowa State and UNI, like our plan is about 32 pages long, and it's broad. And and by broad I mean like it's long, but like other campuses have offered very little guidance. And so I think we've done a really tremendous job. And we have like the best public health officials in the state. We have a great College of Public Health. We have a great hospital, and they've been really instrumental in making sure that we're following CDC guidance. And so administration has done a really good job of looping me in and student government and creating those plans. And we've had regular meetings about it. I think there's a lot of concern out there still from the student body that I've seen. I know in our town halls and on Twitter that people are just generally concerned, and there's a lot of questions to be answered, and that's going to take a lot of effort by the university. I know there are plans for some sort of mandatory icon or MyUI course that students will have to take that'll educate them on all the new changes, like wearing face masks and, how to socially distance and what happens if you get sick and how do you get tested. So there's going to be a lot of communication. It's just a lot of it's in development. And I think it's hard because it's like personally, I want to be back on campus more than anything. And I think like most people I talk to, my friends, my classmates, like want to have a semester, right? Like they want to, like imagining a completely virtual semester from
no one wants
August
to relive the second half of semester.
Exactly. And that's like, like I think I would have no motivation to log on to Zoom for like from August to December, just and no personal connection with students or campus. So I think it was hard for, administration to really look at like, how do we provide that experience that students are paying for, that students want, that they signed up for, that they want to get their degree through, but also make sure that we're following top of the line CDC guidance. So personally, very proud of it. I know that there's a lot of continued concern, and we're hoping, they're having forums throughout the month to really answer those questions. There's an email that students can reach out to for questions.
What's the email? Do you know?
I think it's coronavirusquestions@uiowa.edu.
Okay.
But a lot of it can be found on the coronavirus.uiowa.edu. Everything about how the university is responding to that should be on that website. So that will have the 32-page plan and everything. But
that's definitely very in-depth. I know compared to some friends who are at different universities, I think that our plan is definitely more in-depth than others, as you were saying with ISU and stuff. But.
Yes. And it's hard because, as students, we see a lot of other schools either like close down for the year or reopen completely. And we just cannot follow all what other schools are doing because we're different. Like every state's different. On that end, like we have to be, as a student body, we have to follow these rules, because if we don't, the cases in Johnson County will spike and the likelihood of us going home for the year will increase. And
no one wants that.
Yes, no one wants that, and no one wants to get sick. No one wants to have to go to the hospital or be quarantined, or lose a life, or like impact another life of their family members. Yeah. So we're really working, student government's working with city council and the area business leaders, College of Public Health, to develop a campaign to really encourage students, especially as they go to like restaurants, bars, house parties, like please continue to socially distance because people are going to get sick and it's going to risk our semester. But there's still a lot to be ironed out as we move forward, but I'm hopeful that this plan is the best out there, I think.
Yeah, for sure. From what I've seen, it's definitely, very in depth, which I think it lessens fears. I know for me, like, knowing exactly like each thing that's going to happen makes me feel more like trust the university more, because they what's going on, and like what their plan is in case of this or in case of that. And so definitely it's a crazy plan. Very, I don't know if exciting is a good word in this situation,
right.
but you're kind of excited to like see like what is going to happen, and how that plan can continue and how it will carry out through the semester and how things will result, because we don't know right now because there are no schools in session, but
right.
Once there are. So is there anything else you would like to add at all about the Black Lives Matter stuff, about COVID, anything you would like to say to students?
I would say, like, first, like, I know how hard of a time this is for students, and like we're working really hard to make sure that we're being supportive as much as we can, and we're trying to think, there's so many perspectives on all of this, and so we're trying to like realize that as a student government, we don't represent we technically represent all students, but we can't have every perspective. So we're trying hard to like do outreach, but I would just say, like, I would encourage students who are listening to like reach out with concerns or questions to either university administration, staff, but also student government on our website. You can find our contact information, uisg.uiowa.edu, and really reach out. Like, we have so many things. Like 2020 is just full of a lot of things going on. Like, to think we have a presidential election coming up in November is insane. So it's like, take care of yourselves, like do a lot of self-care. But I think that our university campus community is like, we're very strong in the fact that we are committed to each other. We continue to want to push progress on things, and students are passionate more than I think a lot of universities. Like, we have the ability to raise our voices and ask for change, and it inspires me. So I'm just excited to continue to work with everyone, and hopefully we can come up with more solutions on things.
Yeah. Well, thank you for your time, Connor. This has been a really interesting conversation. And I love hearing everything that's going on with student government and the administration. So again, Connor said, coronavirus questions, coronavirus at UIOWA, coronavirus questions at uiowa.edu.
Yeah, I would just go straight to coronavirus.uiowa.edu because I can't remember for sure the email, but.
Yeah, okay. So that's where, if you have any questions, and I believe the statement from the administration with protests and everything is on the website. So all that is there. And yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thanks for covering it. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Okay.